Hey guys, this is Philip with a Starshot Onslaught update video. This should be the ninth video in the series. This video primarily focuses, or rather, this update primarily focuses on the free ship movement and procedurally generated gun modifiers. Let's just get right into it. One of the first things I added was now that ships now have the ability or have rather been granted their own personal trackers that can be turned on and off while the player is in the ship. Essentially, this was added to provide a way to track the ship should you get lost in space. Like, let's say, for example, if you jumped out of your ship and for whatever reason, because you were chasing another one and whatnot, and you didn't want to lose your ship, you could then activate this before you jump out, and then at some point, if you get another ship, you can go track it down. Essentially in future updates, what I'm planning is that for ships that are randomly spawned, they'll have a timer that'll activate these trackers, and it'll determine how long these trackers are active for before it's deactivated if the player does not interact with them. Ship movement has also been updated to now maneuver based on the given direction the ship is facing. Essentially, this allows for a wider range of movements what that the other old system didn't initially give. So, for example, with the way the old system was based off of, it was based off of a global coordinate system. That is, the x and y values, or the horizontal and vertical values for sprites that are placed on the screen, are based off of the screen itself and are not independent of it. So, if you adjusted the camera angle, it could essentially render your movement moot, because if you might, let's say for example, if you press the left key on it to get the ship to go left, and then shift the camera angle, it might look like it's now going right or up or down, etc. So with this new system, it now gives you a way to essentially adjust your headings and always fly in the direction that you want at that point in time. This new system does take advantage of the circular system, or a similar circular system, similar to the ones that are used for players and NPCs when they're walking along the surface of a planet. And I am planning on adding more in-depth video detailing how these systems work at some point. Also, I added a new event known as the military drop pod. And basically, this event creates a camo color drop pod, or I should say a camouflage drop pod, that basically holds a variety of randomly generated gun modifiers in its inventory. And essentially, this greatly diversifies the type of weapons that can be applied to a ship's primary gun, so you're not limited to whatever comes in through the refinery. You can see some pretty weird and wacky projectiles and gun modifiers that you wouldn't normally see if you were just using the standard. In this instance, unlike and another thing about the military pod, unlike the standard rescue pod that spawns whenever you die at that point, the military drop pod can actually be flown like a normal ship after it's landed. I've also enabled or reinstated the free camera rotation, and this is basically happening along with the implementation of relative ship movements. The ship rotate. So basically, it's basically a complement for the ship movement. So now you can adjust it to however you want it to look whenever you're moving. Let's say, for example, you're leaving a planet's surface, and you want it to look as if you're lifting off. You can just adjust the camera angle accordingly. The game also ships now lock when the game screen is not in focus, and this essentially prevents what looks like the ship that the player is sitting in from rotating wildly while you're looking at or accessing a different window. Another new feature I have added is black holes. They've been added to the game. They are still a work in progress, but they are in. Future plans for this is to update them to include the ability to throw a player to a random part of the universe when they're flown into. And I do have other plans in the works for adding additional space phenomenon like rogue stars and nebula and whatnot that you can interact with and fly through. And each one will have their own unique effect on the given player or ships that enter into them at that point in time. Menus can now also be shifted or relocated on the screen, and they're not affected by the mouse or the zoom of the planetary camera angle. So basically, it means if a player walks up to a shipbuilding like a shipyard, and they interact with it, it doesn't just reset or change the look or the camera angle that they are initially on. So if they're on like technically what the game considers the bottom of the planet, it's not going to snap it to be upright in order to see that screen. You can actually just adjust it. It'll adjust it to stay where it is at that point in time, and it'll still look like you're right side up relative to whatever building you're interacting with. There's also been a few GUI implementations or updates in regards to it, and this is part of the general image sprite imaging and updates that will be continuous and that will be going over. I expect that these will have several revisions that are going to be going through with each one at that point in time. And this, I've also begun a redesign of the extinguisher modifier. This particular modifier is unique in that it allows for movement in space while outside of a ship. The extinguisher will essentially apply constant thrust while the player adjusts the direction by shifting angles. And basically, you'll be able to, if you need to, like for example, go from one ship to another while you're outside of a planet's gravitational field, you can activate this modifier and then free float while using a bit of the thrust to push yourself to that secondary ship once you step out of your own personal ship. A few of the bug fixes includes patching the rainfall through plane that basically essentially rain that falls through a planet, and adding try-catch statements to the special effects and projectile gravity functions to prevent them from crashing the game in the event that a given particle hits its dissipation rate while running the function. So essentially what typically happened at that point in time is that if there's a rainstorm going on a planet, there's always the chance that the gravity function is called on a given particle, and then that particle immediately hits its dissipation rate and poof, it essentially vanishes at that point in time, meaning that the whole game essentially would crash because the gravity function can no longer find that particular particle. So what I've essentially done is I've added try-catch statements to it to essentially prevent that from happening. So if it sees that that's no longer there and it would otherwise throw an error message, it'll now just close out of it or cancel out of that function, and it'll go on with everything else without crashing. Essentially, that's basically it for the main update. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.